Hey there, it's Dr. Jonathan with another 12 at 12 live. I'm doing these every single day. And the basic idea is that we take about 12 minutes, it's usually a bit more, and we explore some topic relating to spiritual wellness and how do we move through a time of great uncertainty, challenge, even crisis in a way that actually brings more peace, love, and wisdom into our lives. In some ways, it sounds absurd, and yet for people that have been on the spiritual path or the path of personal growth for a long time, we know that very often it is precisely the most difficult moments in our lives that enable us to look at things differently, to see ourselves differently, and to consider life and living differently. I was just doing some reading in a book. I don't even know where I put. Oh, too many books around here. I was just doing some reading in one of my favorite collections of spiritual poetry. It's a book called Women in Praise of the Sacred. That's probably backwards for you because that's what happens on Facebook. But it's called Women in Praise of the Sacred. That's the coloring of the book. And it's edited by Jane Hirschfield. She's a wonderful, wonderful poet and translator or adapter of ancient spiritual poetry. And it is all women authors, all women mystics. I couldn't love that more. And then at the beginning of each section by each women mystic, there's a little description about their life and their path and their work. And I couldn't recommend it more. So before we dive into today's topic, I'm going to invite you to slow down with me. And I'm going to give you a reading, and then we're going to go from there. All right. Taking a deep breath, letting your eyes close, feeling yourself sitting comfortably but alert. I'm going to encourage you to breathe out as long and as slowly as you can. Most significantly is the length of the exhale. Breathe out till you can't breathe out anymore. Feel your stomach muscles contract. Breathe gently but fully in through the nose. You'll feel your belly fill or your lungs fill so that your diaphragm descends and your stomach pushes out. And just continue that cycle. Deep breaths in, soft and quiet, long exhale. Keeping your eyes closed, feel yourself coming into stillness. And I'm going to read a couple of poems here. And they're by one of my favorite women mystic authors who lived in the 12th century, Mathilde of Magdeburg in Germany. A fish cannot drown in water. A bird doesn't fall in the air. In the fire of its making, gold doesn't vanish. The fire brightens. Each creature God made must live its own true nature. How could I resist my nature that lives for oneness with God? How God answers the soul. It is my nature that makes me love you often, for I am love itself. It is my longing that makes me love you intensely, for I yearn to be loved from the heart. It is my eternity that makes me love you long, for I have no end. This is how God answers the soul. So, our time goes by quickly, and it's funny because I find that I often speak quickly and dramatically to get my message across in the short time that we have. The topic that struck me today, though, is the topic of slowing down. Now, the topic of slowing down, I think, is often not fully understood. I don't want to say misunderstood, but I do want to say that I experience it as not being fully understood. I just don't want to say everyone else is wrong. Most of the time when we talk about slowing down, what people are really talking about is an external kind of slowing down. Oh, I'm not in traffic because of the quarantine. I don't have as many things to do. My schedule's not as busy as it was. I don't see as many people. We're really talking about the pace of our actual external life. And that's true. Life today for many, many people, regardless of whether we're working or not, regardless of our age, our lives are so full of things to do and know and consume mentally and emotionally, reading, hearing. There's a ton of information coming in, a ton of connection coming in, and that creates the feeling of speed and busyness, sometimes a frenetic quality, because we're just moving from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. So when we face a time of quarantine, it is a kind of slowing down. And of course, people all over the world are talking about the blessings of slowing down, doing less, being less things to less people. And all of that, of course, is critically important. But the thing that I want to invite you to consider, explore, or pay attention to is what it means to slow down internally. Learning to slow your thinking. Learning to slow your reaction to your feelings. Learning to be relaxed and slow in relationship to your own life. This, to me, is the real slowness practice that we need to cultivate. Now, it's true that a time where there's just less doing and less busyness can give us greater, easier access to the feeling of slowing down, but it's not the same as slowing down internally necessarily. In fact, there's a lot of people that are at home right now doing very little and going very fast inside, thinking about things to do, watching TV and jumping from one thing to the next, following the news, constantly thinking about what's going on. To go slow within yourself is to be relaxed inside your own life. To go slow is to be observing. It is to be present. It is to be with your feelings and whatever is arising in your mind and your life without reactivity, without speed or haste. The feeling of striving, doing, claiming, clinging, all of that needs to subside or settle when we slow down inside. So what does it look like, or what does it mean to slow down? Well, most of us know the experience, but we don't cultivate it often enough. So when you meditate, part of the experience after you get beyond the busy mind and the constant chatter about why you bothered meditating in the first place and why this isn't for people like you, that moment, typically right at the end, your little alarm goes off and, suddenly you feel relaxed, like you could do this for another 10 minutes. That's the moment. When you just wake up, not alarmed by a noise outside or you're rushing off to do something, but when you wake up naturally and you have that slow, dreamy space. You're not quite asleep, you're not quite awake. Maybe you've just gone for a long walk, and before you get back to the car, you sit and you just find that the world, your internal world, has slowed down. And certainly for a lot of people with exercise, vigorous exercise, sex is included, typically after these kinds of activities, partially because of a physiological response, we experience internal slowness. That means that the space between thoughts is bigger. The space around emotions is bigger. And we are rooted in the spaciousness of our innermost nature. That is truly what we are cultivating when we talk about embracing the gifts of slowing down. The beautiful thing about this is you can carry that inward slowness into anything you do, including busy moments, including chaotic moments. And I would say that what we're seeing in the work of the truly heroic healthcare givers around the world is that they have to cultivate this experience of being slow inside, careful in mind, even though there might be 1,000 things to do and all kinds of pressures coming in. The hallmark of an emergency responder is someone who can be aware of all the complexity and urgency, but through breath, through intention, through self-awareness, can slow down and be fully present. Space between the thoughts, spaciousness around the emotions, and rooted in the stillness within. Whatever it is that gets you there while you go through this difficult time of quarantine and pandemic, cultivate your deep experience of slowness, inner slowness, and see what arises from that place. The experience of inner slowness itself is a goal, is a practice, is a virtue that will allow so many other things to come to you. Your sense of connection, your sense of love, your sense of security, even in difficult times. Cultivate that inner sense of slowness, and it will move you somewhere extraordinary faster than you can imagine. So our time is up, and I thought this was an interesting poem to read, also by Mathilde of Magdeburg, the German mystic from the 12th century. It's not exactly about slowness, but I was captured by how much it reminds me of this strange pandemic time. And it's called "The Desert Has Many Teachings." And when I think of the desert in this reading, or when you think of the desert in this reading, think of it as spacious, slow, right? That's what we're talking about cultivating, inner spaciousness. In the desert, turn toward emptiness, fleeing the clutter and busyness of the self. Stand alone, ask no one's help, and your being will quiet, free from the bondage of things. Your being will quiet, free from the bondage of things. Those who cling to the world endeavor to free them. Those who are free praise them. Care for the sick, but live alone. Happy to drink from the waters of sorrow, to kindle love's fire with the twigs of a simple life. Thus you will live in the desert. And so with that, thank you for joining me again. Maybe we'll see you tomorrow, 12 at 12. Oh, and don't forget, check out my website, sign up for my newsletter. We have a free book, a new book coming out on spiritual experience, probably going to be released by the end of this week, and I'm happy to give a free electronic copy to anyone and everyone as we dive through this time of discovering that we are more than what we think, we are more than what we have, and we are certainly more than what we've been told. Slow down, and I'll see you soon.